what lies ahead in Canada, it would have been enough if they were only angry and betrayed by this government's duplicitous attempt to be all things to all people like we just heard. But today, the blind sellout to the forces of evil at home and abroad is what should be a wake-up call, like no other, to every freedom-loving Canadian who has built any piece of this country and who enjoys everything that those before us had built for us. This motion is not about a ceasefire. This motion is about rewarding Hamas for their massacre. This motion is a vote to reward the murder, the rape, the kidnapping of Israelis, and this motion is deeply irresponsible for this parliament. And it's hard to explain and express the complex feelings of shock and fear and anger felt by thousands across the country who are being subjected to this motion today. It would have been enough if they were shocked by the public displays of blatant anti-Semitism in our streets, driven entirely by the irresponsible rhetoric in this House. It would have been enough if they were fearful for what lies ahead in Canada. It would have been enough if they were only angry and betrayed by this government's duplicitous attempt to be all things to all people like we just heard. But today, the blind sellout to the forces of evil at home and abroad is what should be a wake-up call, like no other, to every freedom-loving Canadian who has built any piece of this country and who enjoys everything that those before us had built for us. This would be...
It's so sad to see where Canada's going, and she is exactly correct. Canada has lost their plot, and they're rewarding Hamas every time they move something like this forward.
A ceasefire motion if it called for Hamas to lay down its arms, to surrender, and for immediately to return every single hostage, bring them home. It is not that. In the wake of the deadliest day for the Jews since the Holocaust, this government and this Prime Minister, held captive by its NDP overlords, are giving in to terror. And this motion is only the latest example of that. Since October 7th,
perspective from someone I value very highly and I have missed, the son of a founding member of Hamas.
Canada is so lost. They've really lost the plot. But again, every single country that is moving forward a motion to support a Palestinian state first, besides the fact that it's actually not possible because the Palestinians will never agree to any of the borders, and that's number one, a prerequisite of defining a state, is where is the state going to be? And surprise, surprise, what Hamas and what the Palestinians want, it to be all of Israel. And that is never going to happen. But putting aside the fact that it's just a fairy tale, it's let's make a unicorn exist, even though it doesn't. The reality is these countries are basically saying, okay, we cave. We cave to the Muslims, we cave to the Islamists, we cave to the woke mentality, and we're going to celebrate Hamas. We're going to give them what they want, because if we just give them what they want, they will finally start acting like rational beings. And my friends, that is not how it works. If you give a terrorist what they want, you end up with more terrorism. You celebrate the release, the refusal of them to negotiate hostages. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to try and get more hostages. You don't give a terrorist what a terrorist wants, because it learns that it can act again and again in a form that is dangerous for society. The countries recognizing Palestine not only are sticking a not only are sticking a knife in the backs of a country like Israel, who should be their ally and their friend, because we are on the forefront of this fight, so that the people of Canada don't have to fight, so that we can fight for them. But really what they're doing is they're saying to Hamas, you don't have to worry. You don't really have to do anything. You just keep on acting like terrorists, and we will give you exactly the things that you want. You know what's so interesting to note? The second that Hamas notices that the Western societies are trying to put the pressure on Israel to succumb to the false narratives that they're creating, they start to release videos of hostage, like this disgusting and horrible video that was released yesterday of one of our hostages who was a strong man. And just look at what he looks like right now.
Perspective from someone I value very highly and I have missed, the son of a founding member of Hamas.
נגמר לי האוכל והשתייה. אם לפני כן כאילו נותנים לי קצת, טיפה, היום כבר אין כלום. מהבוקר עד ללילה אני סובל בסבל שלא נראה טוב, כף רגל, על הראש, יש לי כאבים בידיים וברגליים. משתחרר ואני לא מצליח לעמוד, ללכת לשירותים, אני לא מצליח. אני לא מצליח לישון. אני לא מצליח לחיות. אני חייב שתוציאו אותי מפה.
That is what real starvation looks like. Not what's happening to the Palestinians, what they're doing to our hostages. And this, every person in the West who has called for a ceasefire, every country who has called to recognize for a Palestinian state, you hold responsibility for what you just saw. A strong Israeli innocent civilian who was brutally stolen from a party and who has been subjugated to almost 600 days of absolute terror, starvation, intentionally not being allowed to have any of the basic human rights that are deserved by every single person in this world. You are responsible for that, and you better remember that. The Canadian government, the UK government, the government of every country that has recognized every person out there who has called for the destruction of Israel, every person who has called for a ceasefire and who has not called out for the hostages, you hold responsibility for what that man's going for. You are the ones who have torpedoed once again our negotiations with Hamas to try and get these people home. You are the ones at fault.